I would now like to ask Sue Lawrence, Assistant Professor of Communication, Kevin McClellan, our Distinguished Alumni Award honoree, and Daniel Moran, Class of 2003 and President of the Marist College Alumni Association, to please come forward. Dr. Lawrence will read the citation honoring Kevin McClellan, and the Distinguished Alumnus Medal will be placed by President Yellen and Mr. Moran.
Thank you. Kevin McClellan, you are an alumnus held in very high esteem. We are so thrilled to welcome you back to Marist and to have you address our graduates who are about to become your fellow alumni this evening. You took your Marist degree in communication and took it to the highest levels. You have worked for some of the best-known entertainment and broadcasting companies in the world, including Comcast and NBCUniversal. As chairman of Global Distribution and International at NBCUniversal, you have an enormous array of responsibilities and are charged with overseeing worldwide content distribution. You have been involved with extremely popular programming, including E! Live from the Red Carpet, Saturday Night Live, Law and Order, Jurassic World, Mr. Robot, and Downton Abbey, and bringing that programming to a global audience. It seems fitting that your television career has been heavily focused on making the world a more connected place. When you were a student here, you were encouraged to study abroad by then director of the Marist Abroad program, Dr. Jeptha Lanning, affectionately known as Jep. Because of Dr. Lanning, you studied in the United Kingdom for a year, an experience you later described as life-changing. To help other Marist students gain their own life-changing international experiences, last year, you generously established the Donald and Virginia McLellan International Scholarship. This scholarship, named in honor of your parents, supports students with financial need wishing to expand their cultural horizons by studying abroad, just as you were able to do. Your dedication to helping others and giving back is also evident in the Soho Recovery Center in London, which you founded. The center provides space in the heart of London for 12-step recovery meetings to take place. By establishing the center, you have helped people who are working to recover from addiction or eating disorders by giving them access to support, particularly in the early phases of the recovery process when intensive meetings and community support are essential. This life-saving resource is enabling those suffering from addiction to achieve long-term recovery. In recognition of your achievements and for your embodiment of the principles of Marist College, the Board of Trustees proudly presents you with the Distinguished Alumni Medal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to President Yellen, Dr. Murray, who was here while I was here, and especially Sue Lawrence. I have to say I didn't know till this morning that Dr. Lawrence was going to be giving me my award today, and she actually taught me in my television production classes here almost 30 years ago. So I was really blown away, and it was particularly important to me because I get the chance to say something very special to her, and that is, I am so terribly sorry for the horrible video that I submitted my senior year with you. I had to do a 10-minute video, and I was supposed to be working on it all year, but it was my senior year, so I sort of blew it off. And I spent like 3 days on it. I did 3 all-nighters, and I asked all my roommates to act in it, and they were horrible. Part of it was their fault, I just want to say. They were just terrible. And when she gave it back to me with the script attached, instead of a grade at the top, it just said, "What happened?" ? So I want to say that it motivated me greatly to do a better job moving forward. So from that to Downton Abbey, I think that was a little bit better of a show than the others. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. Also, I want to say hello to all of the graduates. Super exciting day. I'm sure you're all feeling it. And hello to your family and friends. Hello to even the people you invited you don't like. I think we should give them a special hello, right? Because they're here. And then also, how about this weather? Everybody, no rain. Let's hear a whoop for that. Clap for God. Thank you, God. Appreciate that. You know, till this morning I thought we were going to be caught in the McCann Center kind of stinking a basketball player sweat. But, oh, sorry, Dr. Yellen, that's looking like your future tomorrow, I'm guessing, right? Sorry about that. Anyway, all right. That's enough with the act. I actually did write a speech for today, and I'm very, very honored to be here, I should say. Thank you all for having me. So I imagine you're all feeling quite emotional. I know I was when I graduated from Marist 29 years ago. But really, I wasn't really feeling all that excited when I graduated. I was actually just very afraid and depressed. You know, my fingernails are caught in the walls of one of the townhouses here. They had to drag me out of Marist. And I think I was most upset because for so long I had been protected at Marist. Marist had become the place where I was safe, I was surrounded with friends, I was given good orderly direction while I was here at a time when I really needed it. And I was afraid to leave. And mostly I realized looking back that I was afraid that I would be found out. That, you know, I had been telling everybody that I was a student, and it was short and simple, and it sort of said all it needed to say. But most importantly, it said to people that the best of me was yet to come. And in reality, I didn't think there was the best of me yet to come. I didn't think there was much to me. I was a very insecure student. And so I was frightened when I was leaving. And I was afraid that everybody that believed that in the promise of Kevin, the graduate, was going to be disappointed in me. However, that's not what happened. I know many of you here today actually have been more than just a student for some time. Most of you have held down jobs, had numerous relationships, and even raised children. That is why I really struggled with what to say to all of you. I mean, after all, for the most part, you've all had a fair bit of life experience. I'm not saying that you're jaded or sort of insecure or really even judgmental, but I think most of you are from the tri-state area, so it's clear to say that you're a tough crowd to speak to tonight. But what I did was what most people do. I searched the internet. And after searching the internet for inspiration, I can tell you one thing you should never do when writing a commencement speech, and that's Google the 10 best commencement speeches of all time. Why? Well, because I am not Barack Obama, and I'm not Bill Gates, and I'm certainly not Ellen DeGeneres. I am not a consummate professional politician. Well, I guess I am a consummate professional, just not a consummate politician. A brilliant visionary or a trailblazing entertainer. What I am, however, is one of you. I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, the youngest of 8 kids in a blue-collar Irish Catholic family with very little money, a bit of chaos, and a lot of love. All in all, a very average person. So after realizing that I couldn't do what some of these brilliant speakers did, I asked myself, and maybe for the first time, how did an insecure kid from working-class Brooklyn end up running a multi-billion-dollar division of one of the world's largest media companies, producing over 2,000 hours of television, and managing over 3,000 people in 37 countries around the world? And I can assure you that some of my roommates from Marist and some of my family are here, and they are still asking themselves the same question to this day. How is that possible? Well, the answer did not come easily. There was no brilliant formula to professional success that I could identify. However, looking back, one thing was clear. Before I had succeeded professionally, I first had to address my 2 biggest character defects, fear and insecurity. When I asked myself how I had done this, I could see 3 clear ways that I had achieved this goal. And I'm going to share those with you today. And so 1 is to be real. 2 is be of service. And 3 is be not so hard. The first of these, be real, was perhaps the hardest for me. As I said, I had grown up in a loving family, but it was a very different time then. I was a gay kid in a tough neighborhood in 1970s Brooklyn. Despite trying to hide who I was verbally and physically tormented through most of my teens. I can tell you that when you spend countless hours trying to remember not to walk a certain way, or move your hands a certain way, or even look at another person of the same sex for more than a few seconds, it is mentally and physically exhausting. There is no way to be your best self when you spend all your time extinguishing any spark of life you might feel. This was a dark time for me. Looking back now, I realize that this period had the biggest influence on my life in both negative and positive ways. The negative was that I learned to be ashamed of who I was. And the positive was that I became mentally quite strong and capable of performing very well under pressure, which came in handy when I started producing television and movies. It would be years before I built up the courage to be honest about who I really was. But I can assure you that it was no coincidence that my career really began to take off once I was free to be my whole self. It wasn't all doom and gloom, though. I was also blessed to have very supportive siblings. Attending Marist was the result of my sister Maureen giving me one of my first lessons in being real. One day she said to me, "What are you going to study when you go to college?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'll probably study accounting because that's what Mom wants me to do." And my sister said, "Don't listen to Mom. Do something you like." "What is it that you like, Kevin?" And honestly, at that point, I couldn't think of a single thing to say to her at 17 years old. Well, I could think of one thing, but I had a secret, so I couldn't say Broadway musicals. That was definitely out of the question. But what I did end up saying was, I said, "I really love going to the movies and watching TV," which at the time didn't seem exactly the most respected pastime in history, but to her credit, she didn't make fun of me. She said, "So then study television and film production." I didn't even know I could do that until that point in my life. Then my sister did something very out of character. She looked at me seriously and said, "It is very important that you choose something you like if you want to be happy. Do not let others tell you what you should do with your life." It was very out of character. Normally she spent all her time nagging and teasing me. So this really sunk in because she was so serious with me. So choosing television production at Marist was one of the first honest decisions I made in my life, and has definitely turned out to be one of the best. I have found that when I am real, people trust me more, like me more, and are more willing to follow my lead. Whereas when I try to be what other people want me to be, I struggle to connect or inspire others. Authenticity and self-awareness are powerful leadership skills that have served me well. Being of service to others has also proved to be very valuable. In my personal life, I see myself being of service most often with my family. 27 years ago, I met the love of my life, my husband, Brian, and we've had the most amazing time living all over the world together. And just 3 years ago, we became the proud fathers of 2 beautiful sons, Alexandra and William. Being a husband and a father has been the greatest blessing of my life, especially since I lived the first half of my life thinking that would never be possible. But any of you who have been in a long-term relationship or had children will know that being a significant other or a parent is really hard work, particularly for those of you that have been getting your degrees while you do it. Having to collaborate, compromise, and live on minimal hours of sleep just really sucks sometimes. There are numerous times that I just want the world to stop so I can hide away somewhere and just focus on me. The problem is that, as my brother Don always says, spending too much time in your own head is like taking a walk in a dangerous neighborhood. Something bad is bound to happen. Whereas when I focus my energies on others, I feel pretty good about myself. A good friend once told me that self-esteem was the building block for creating a happy life. And in order to feel self-esteem, one must first do esteemable things. Ridiculously logical when you think about it, but often hard to remember. So showing up for my family and friends is exhausting at times, but it is also the foundation of my self-esteem. I have also seen being of service pay huge dividends at work. For many years, I watched my parents work full-time jobs while they raised 8 children. Can you imagine that? I complain having 2. At times, my dad worked up to 3 jobs at a time, and my mom worked and managed most of the tasks in our busy household. I believe it is from them that I got my work ethic, and from them that I learned that if I wanted to succeed, I needed to be of service to my employer instead of expecting my employer to be of service to me. When I wanted the office in the corner, I asked myself, what do I need to do to get promoted to get the office in the corner? I didn't resent the company for not just giving it to me for being there for a long time. When I showed up on the set as a production assistant or as the executive producer, I made it a point to work harder, contribute more, and get noticed. That's really important in whatever you go to do. Get noticed. Sure, some of this was because I'm naturally insecure and super competitive, a dangerous and powerful combination, by the way. But the older I got, the more I realized that showing up and saying, "What can I do for you?" paid much greater dividends than showing up and asking, "What's in it for me?" The last action that I feel has had the most positive impact on me personally is a piece of advice that my friend Chuck gave me frequently. He would say to me, "Kevin, be not so hard." And the early part of my life, I found that really difficult being from Brooklyn. But now that I'm 51 years old, being not so hard is actually depressingly much easier. Now, this goes against my Irish Catholic blue-collar New Yorker roots big time. I mean, we're known around the world for being hard. We're supposed to be harder working, harder edged, and more opinionated, and that's the stereotype, and for many years I lived up to it. For all the good that came out of my working-class Brooklyn background, I also took with me this idea that life is a series of black and white decisions. My beliefs were the right beliefs, and anybody who believed differently was wrong. This was the way of thinking that certainly made life easier, but it also stifled me professionally and personally. I first realized how limiting this philosophy was when I spent a year studying abroad in the UK. I got to Brighton, England in the 1980s, and everyone had mohawks and blue hair and listened to punk music. They couldn't have been more different than me. I literally spent the first 6 months there vehemently defending Ronald Reagan, a president I had not even voted for. But that was because America was right and Britain was wrong. It was as simple as that. But it wasn't. And if I had stuck to my black and white philosophy, I would have missed out on what proved to be one of the most mind-altering experiences of my life. Now, this does not mean that I became a flag-burning British socialist, but I did open myself up to the idea that billions of people around the world think differently than me, and that does not make them wrong. It just makes them different. This realization did not make life easier, it just made it more complicated. I'll admit, it was exhausting, frustrating, and annoying at times. But learning to empathize with others' beliefs really did prepare me for being able to lead large groups of very different people in countries all around the world. By being more open to others' beliefs, I became more willing to change my own. I was able to become more influential, motivating, and intuitive. Without these abilities, I would never have achieved the level of success that I have. I'm not going to deny that to this day, I am considered to be a tough and demanding boss. But I think I'd be right in saying that my employees around the world would also say that I was understanding and fair. Holding on to the edge I grew up with, while opening myself up to being more empathetic, is what I call being not so hard. So the leadership skills I developed to achieve the success I have had in my career all came about as a result of me being open to identifying my own character defects and making changes. I've had many teachers along the way, but in the end, I had to make the changes myself. Today, when I find myself feeling insecure or unsure about what to do, I remind myself to be real, be of service, and be not so hard. Usually, this is enough to ensure that I get out of my own way, which in my experience is more than half the battle. In closing, I'd like to say that being asked to do this speech today is one of the greatest honors of my life. Because when I was truly lost in my life, Marist picked me up and cradled me until I could find a path of my own. The friends I made here are to this day the best friends I have in the world. And when they all found out that I was doing this speech, they insisted on coming to Poughkeepsie today. Imagine that. Nearly 33 years have passed since I first met these friends, and over 20 of them put aside their lives for a weekend to come and celebrate me. Clearly, I'm not the only one who has learned a bit about being real, being of service, or being not so hard since graduating here. It must be something in the water. I wish you all the same amount of love, success, and satisfaction that I've been blessed with in my life. God bless you, and good luck. Thank you.